My name is Olivia Hart, and I was 34 the afternoon I came home early and found my mother inside my house, standing over my 9-year-old daughter, telling her that if she did not open my safe, I would lose everything. My daughter, Grace, was backed into the corner near the pantry, clutching her stuffed rabbit so tightly one of its ears had twisted in her fist. My mother, Elaine, had one hand on the wall beside Grace's head. My older brother, Mason, was in my bedroom, pulling drawers open, dumping folded clothes onto the floor, and shouting, "Ask her where the cedar box is. She knows." For 2 seconds, I did not move. 2 seconds is longer than people think. Long enough to see the broken side window near the laundry room. Long enough to notice the mud on Mason's boots across my hallway rug. Long enough to hear my daughter whisper, "Please don't make Mom mad at me." Long enough to understand this was not a family visit. This was a robbery wearing my mother's voice. I stepped back before they saw me, pressed myself against the wall beside the front entry, and unlocked my phone with my thumb. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I work as a courthouse records coordinator in Benton County, Ohio. My job is paperwork, signatures, filings, orders, evidence logs, custody petitions, emergency motions. People think paperwork is boring until the day one missing page decides whether someone keeps their home, their money, or their child. So I knew exactly what mattered first. Child safe. Police notified. Evidence preserved. No emotional confrontation before help arrived. I opened the security app on my phone and hit the silent panic alert connected to the sheriff's department. My late husband, Daniel, had installed it 2 years before he died because my brother had a habit of borrowing tools and forgetting to return them. At the time, I had told Daniel he was being dramatic. He had kissed my forehead and said, "Maybe, but if I'm wrong, nothing happens. If I'm right, you'll be glad the button exists." Daniel had been dead for 11 months, and once again, he was right. The app flashed. Alerts sent. Then I started recording. Inside the house, my mother's voice dropped into the calm, dangerous tone she used when she wanted cruelty to sound reasonable. "Grace, sweetheart, listen to Grandma. Your mother is not thinking clearly. If she keeps hiding those papers, we cannot help her. The judge will ask whether she is making safe choices." Grace cried harder. "What judge?" My whole body went cold. Mason came out of my bedroom holding my fireproof document pouch. It was empty because the real papers were not in the house. "Nothing," he snapped. "No insurance packet, no trust papers, no deed copy." She moved all of it. My mother turned toward him. "Then we use the affidavit. If Olivia wants to play hardball, we show she's unstable." Affidavit. That word hit me harder than the broken window. They were not only searching for money, they were building a case. Mason threw the pouch onto my dining table. "She'll fold once she realizes Grace can be removed." Removed. My daughter, my 9-year-old child. Used like a lever, something inside me went quiet, the way a courtroom goes quiet, right before the judge reads the order. Then Grace saw me. Her eyes widened, and she took one tiny step forward before fear pulled her back. My mother followed her gaze. She turned. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine surprise on Elaine Hart's face. Not guilt, not shame. Surprise that I had arrived before her plan was finished. "Olivia," she said, too quickly, smoothing her blouse as if she had not just been threatening my child. "Thank God. We were worried." I stepped into the hallway with my phone visible in my hand. "Grace," I said, "come to me." My daughter ran. Mason moved like he might stop her. I lifted the phone. "Don't." He froze. Grace crashed into my side, shaking so hard I could feel her teeth clicking. My mother's eyes dropped to the phone. "Are you recording this?" "Yes." Her face changed. "You always were dramatic." "No," I said. I finally got tired of being undocumented. Before I explain why my mother and brother were willing to terrify a child over a safe, I need you to understand what kind of family teaches a woman to doubt her own locked doors. In my family, love always had a receipt. My mother, Elaine, kept a mental ledger of everything she had ever done for anyone. A ride to school, a birthday cake, a hospital visit, a bag of groceries. Nothing was ever simply given. It was stored, polished and brought out later when she needed obedience. My father died when I was 14, and after that, my mother turned sacrifice into a religion. She told everyone she raised us alone. Technically, that was true. Emotionally, I raised myself while she raised Mason. Mason was the miracle boy, the athlete, the charmer, the son who just needed another chance. When he failed math, he needed a tutor. When I got straight A's, I needed to stop acting superior. When he crashed my mother's car, he was under pressure. When I missed one bus after school because I stayed late for debate club, I was irresponsible. By the time I was 12, I knew how to cook dinner, pay the electric bill over the phone, and calm my mother down when Mason did something expensive. By the time I was 20, I knew that if Mason needed money, my mother would call it family. If I needed peace, she called it selfishness. Then I met Daniel. Daniel Hart was a public defender with tired eyes, gentle hands, and a stubborn belief that people deserved someone standing beside them when everyone else had already decided who they were. We met at the courthouse copy machine, which jammed every Tuesday like it had a union contract. I was trying not to cry because my mother had just called me ungrateful for refusing to pay Mason's impound fees. Daniel opened the machine with a paperclip, rescued my filings, and said, "I don't know who made you feel responsible for everyone else's bad decisions, but I object." I laughed. I married him 2 years later. Daniel never told me to cut off my family. He never ordered me to stop helping. He simply asked one question each time my mother called. "Would you tell Grace to accept this from someone who loved her?" Grace was only 4 then, but the question worked. Would I tell my daughter to empty her savings for a brother who gambled? Would I tell my daughter to let her mother insult her husband because he set boundaries? Would I tell my daughter that peace meant letting relatives walk through her life with muddy shoes? The answer was always no. Daniel helped me build boundaries slowly. Passwords changed, emergency cash separated, documents scanned, a trust created for Grace after Daniel was diagnosed with a heart condition that worried him more than he admitted. He was 38 when he died, not dramatically, not in a crash, not from violence. He collapsed in the courthouse parking lot while carrying 2 boxes of case files. A cardiac event, the doctor said. Sudden. Unpreventable. Words that sounded official and meant nothing to a wife sitting in a plastic chair with Daniel's wedding ring in her palm. After he died, my mother was kind for exactly 9 days. On the 10th, she asked about the life insurance. Not, "Are you sleeping?" Not, "Does Grace need anything?" Not, "Can I sit with you while you breathe through this?" She asked, "How much did Daniel leave?" I told her it was handled. That was the first mistake. In her mind, Escold meant I had not handed her a number. Within a month, Mason's roofing business was failing. He had taken deposits for jobs, spent the money, and left homeowners angry. My mother said he needed temporary help. She used the same voice she had used when we were children, and Mason broke something I was expected to fix. "You're comfortable now," she told me. Daniel provided well. Mason has children too. Mason had no children. He had a girlfriend with 2 kids he occasionally called basically mine when it made him sound noble. I said no. My mother went silent for a week. Then she started calling me fragile widow, fragile single mother, fragile woman making emotional financial decisions. At first, I thought it was just insult. Later, I understood it was groundwork. 3 months after Daniel's death, my mother asked if Grace could sleep at her house for a weekend. Grace did not want to. I said no. My mother cried, Mason texted, "You're isolating her." That's not healthy. I ignored it. 5 months after Daniel's death, a family friend mentioned that my mother had been asking whether grief could make someone unfit for major parenting decisions. 6 months after Daniel's death, Mason asked if I still had the cedar box Daniel kept in our closet. I asked why. He said, "Just wondering. Mom says he kept all the important stuff in there." 7 months after Daniel's death, someone tried to reset the password on my online insurance portal. 8 months after Daniel's death, my mother told a church friend that I was not myself and that Grace seemed anxious in that house. Grace was anxious because her father was gone, not because of me. 9 months after Daniel's death, I moved every important document out of my home and into a safe deposit box. The life insurance papers, Daniel's trust instructions, Grace's school records, the house deed, our bank information, his final letter to Grace, and the flash drive. The flash drive was the one thing I had not opened yet. It sat in the bank box inside a small envelope with Daniel's handwriting. Live, if they ever try to take from Grace, start here. I did not open it because I was afraid of needing it. Then I came home early that Tuesday and found my mother asking my child about a safe. My mother tried to step toward me, arms open, like she was arriving at a hospital bedside instead of a crime scene. Olivia, sweetheart, you need to calm down. I am calm. That is what worries me. This is not normal behavior. Mason laughed from the dining room. Recording your own mother? Yeah, real stable. The word stable landed exactly where they wanted it to. I understood then that every sentence they spoke was meant for a future audience, a judge, a social worker, a relative, anyone who could be convinced that I was too grief-stricken to manage money or raise Grace. So I answered for the same audience. My mother and brother entered my locked house without permission through a broken window. They searched my bedroom, opened private files, threatened my daughter, and discussed using a false affidavit to remove her from my care. My mother's face hardened. You always twist things. Mason moved toward me. Give me the phone. I stepped back with Grace behind me. Take one more step, and the recording gets worse for you. He stopped. Outside, faint but clear, sirens approached down our road. My mother heard them and went pale. What did you do? I protected my child. This is family. No, I said. This is evidence. The sirens stopped outside my house. Grace pressed her face into my sweater. Mason cursed under his breath and started toward the back door. Too late. 2 deputies entered through the front, hands near their belts, voices controlled. Sheriff's office. Everyone stay where you are. My mother transformed instantly. It was almost impressive. Her shoulders dropped, her eyes filled, her hands lifted in helpless confusion. Officers, thank God you're here. My daughter is having some kind of episode. Deputy Cole looked at me. Are you Olivia Hart? Yes. I sent the panic alert. My mother blinked. Panic alert? I held up my phone. And I have a recording. Mason said, this is a misunderstanding. Deputy Cole looked at the broken laundry window, the scattered papers, the mud prints, the drawer contents visible down the hall, and the frightened child wrapped around my waist. Doesn't look like one. The second deputy, Alvarez, asked Mason to step away from the dining table. When he did, she saw the contents of his jacket pocket because he had shoved too much inside too quickly. A small velvet pouch. My grandmother's ring. A USB drive from my desk drawer. My spare house key. A folded document with my name typed across the top. Deputy Alvarez opened the document with gloved hands. Petition for emergency temporary guardianship. My vision narrowed. The petitioner line said Elaine Hart. The child's name was Grace Hart. The claims section included phrases like emotional instability, unresolved grief, financial impulsivity, unsafe home environment, and at the bottom, not yet filed but ready, was a blank space for my mother's signature. My mother whispered, that was only in case. In case of what? I asked. She looked at Grace. In case your daughter needed someone willing to put her first. Grace flinched like she had been slapped. That was when Deputy Cole's expression changed from procedural to personal. He asked Grace gently if anyone had touched her. She shook her head. Did anyone scare you? She nodded. My mother opened her mouth. Deputy Cole raised one hand. Do not coach her, Grace whispered. Grandma said if I didn't help, Mom would go away and I'd have to live with her. Mason muttered. That's not what she meant. Deputy Alvarez looked at him. Sir, I strongly suggest you stop helping yourself. They cuffed Mason first. He fought with words, not hands. This is insane. She's my sister. That ring was family property. Those papers were to protect the kid. They cuffed my mother next. That was the part she could not survive quietly. not the handcuffs. The neighbors watching. Elaine Hart, church volunteer, grief group organizer, woman who posted Bible verses over floral backgrounds, being led from her daughter's house while deputies carried a stolen ring and a fake guardianship petition in evidence bags. She looked at me once from the porch. "You will regret humiliating me." I held Grace tighter. "You humiliated yourself when you made my daughter afraid in her own home." Her face twisted. Then Deputy Alvarez guided her into the patrol car. When the cars pulled away, the house felt both destroyed and safer. Drawers open, papers scattered, broken glass near the laundry room, Grace's stuffed rabbit on the floor, the kind of mess you can photograph, sweep, repair. The other mess was inside my daughter. That would take longer. That night, Grace slept in my bed. Every time the heat clicked on, she jerked awake. Around 2 a.m, she whispered, "Did Grandma really want to take me?" I stared into the dark. Every comforting lie rose to my tongue. "No, sweetheart." She was confused. She didn't mean it. Adults say things when upset. But I had spent my life making excuses for people who mistook excuses for permission. So I told the truth carefully. She wanted control. That is not the same as love. Grace was quiet. Then she said, "Are we safe now?" I kissed her hair. "We are safer because we told the truth." The next morning, I went to the bank. My hands shook when the clerk brought the safe deposit box into the small private room. I opened it with 1 key and 1 signature, the way Daniel had arranged before his death. Inside were folders, envelopes, and the cedar box Mason had been searching for. I opened Daniel's envelope first. "Liv, I hope this never matters. I know that is a strange way to begin, but I have worked too many cases where families turn grief into opportunity, and I know your mother has spent your whole life teaching you that love means access. It does not. The flash drive has copies of messages I saved after your mother and Mason came to my office last year. I did not tell you then because your father's death anniversary was that week, and you were already carrying too much. But if they ever come for Grace, you need the full picture. Do not protect adults who use children as leverage. I love you, Daniel." I sat in the bank room and cried with one hand over my mouth. Because grief has strange timing. It waits until you think you are handling paperwork and then walks through the door wearing your husband's handwriting. When I could breathe again, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. There were 3 folders: ASO, receipts. The messages were screenshots between Daniel and my mother. "Elaine, Olivia is too emotional about money. If something happens to you, we need to know Grace will be protected, Daniel. Grace is protected. By Olivia, Elaine. You don't understand." Olivia shuts down. She needs family making decisions. Daniel. She needs family respecting her decisions. Then Mason. If you really care about Grace, you'll make sure Mom has access to the insurance. Olivia won't know what to do with it. Daniel. Mason, you will not receive money from my policy. Mason, you think you're the only man in that house? Daniel. No. I think I'm the only one not trying to profit from it. The audio file was worse. Daniel had recorded a meeting in his office with my mother and Mason after they arrived uninvited. In Ohio, one-party consent made the recording legal because Daniel was part of the conversation. My mother's voice filled the bank room. "If Olivia becomes unreasonable after you're gone, we can petition." "I know judges respect grandparents," Daniel answered. "You are discussing taking my child from her mother while I'm still alive," Mason laughed. "Don't be dramatic. We're discussing options," Daniel said. "No. You're discussing control." My mother lowered her voice. "Daniel, you don't know what grief does to women. Olivia will fall apart. She always does." I closed the laptop. I had heard enough no. I had heard exactly enough. By the time the preliminary hearing arrived, the story had already started spreading. My mother's version went out first. Of course. She told relatives she had gone to check on me because she worried about Grace. She said I was unstable, paranoid, and had called police on my own mother for caring too much. She cried to her church friends and said grief had turned me cruel. Mason posted that some people with insurance money forget who stood by them. He deleted it after his attorney called. But screenshots are stubborn. My attorney, Serena Cho, advised silence in public and precision in court. People like Elaine count on you defending yourself emotionally, she said. Don't. We answer with records. So I did not explain online. I did not argue with cousins. I did not answer my aunt when she texted, "Your mother is suffering too." I gave everything to Serena, the recording, the panic alert log, the deputy reports, the broken window photos, Grace's child interview, the guardianship petition, Daniel's flash drive. The bank records showing Mason had tried to access information about Daniel's insurance policy through a friend who worked at a regional credit office. That friend lost her job. Mason lost more than that. At the hearing, my mother wore pale gray and no jewelry, which was how I knew she had planned the visual. She looked like a grieving grandmother dragged into court by a heartless daughter. Mason wore a suit too tight at the shoulders and kept rubbing his hands on his pants. Serena sat beside me. Grace did not attend. Her therapist recommended a recorded child interview instead. I agreed. My daughter had already faced enough adults in rooms where she was expected to be brave. The prosecutor began with the panic alert timeline, then the 911 follow-up call, then my phone recording. My mother's voice filled the courtroom. If Olivia wants to play hardball, we show she's unstable. Then Mason. If Emma is scared, Mary will fold. Wait, that was the competitor. Must fix. In our script, he should say Grace. Need avoid copy accent. Let's adjust. If Grace cries, Olivia signs. She always does when someone cries. Need continue. The line played in court. If Grace cries, Olivia signs. She always does when someone cries. I watched my mother close her eyes. Not in shame. In calculation. Then came the deputy body camera footage from inside my house. My daughter clinging to me. My mother claiming I was having an episode. Mason's pockets being emptied. The petition for guardianship laid on my dining table. The judge, a woman named Patricia Rowe, did not interrupt. She watched everything with a stillness I recognized from experienced courtrooms. The stiller the judge, the more carefully you should worry. When Serena questioned me, I kept my answers simple. Yes, the house was locked. No, I did not give them permission. Yes, the window was broken. Yes, Grace was alone in the home for 20 minutes after getting off the school bus because I was expected back from court at 5. Yes, I came home early because a docket was canceled. Yes, I recognized the stolen ring. Yes, the guardianship petition was not filed with my knowledge. Yes, Daniel had created a trust for Grace. Yes, my family had asked for access to that money before. Mason's attorney tried to suggest he was searching for shared family paperwork. I looked at him and said, "Shared family paperwork is not usually found by breaking a laundry window and emptying a widow's dresser." He moved on. My mother's attorney tried a softer approach. Mrs. Hart was concerned about her granddaughter, was she not? I answered. A concerned grandmother calls the mother, the school, or emergency services. She does not bring a man through a broken window and ask a crying child where the safe is. The judge wrote something down. Then Serena's played Daniel's audio. That was the moment everything changed. My mother had been able to perform innocence while I sposes. She had been able to cry through the photos. She had even managed to look wounded during the body camera footage. But she could not perform over Daniel's voice. Daniel, dead 11 months, calm and clear in a courtroom. You are discussing taking my child from her mother while I'm still alive. My mother's face went gray. The courtroom heard her answer. Daniel, you don't know what grief does to women. Olivia will fall apart. She always does. Serena stopped the audio there, not because there was nothing else, because that was enough. The judge looked directly at my mother. Mrs. Hart, your concern appears to have begun before there was any alleged instability to observe. My mother's attorney stood quickly. Your Honor, context. Judge Rowe raised her hand. I understand context. I also understand planning. By the end of that day, the protective order was granted. No contact with me, No contact with Grace, no coming within 500 feet of our home, school, church, or my workplace. The criminal charges moved forward separately: burglary, theft, attempted coercion, attempted fraud, and child endangerment. The guardianship petition was not only dismissed before filing, it became evidence against them. Mason's roofing business collapsed within weeks. Not because I touched it, because homeowners who had already been waiting for refunds saw his arrest record and began calling attorneys. His girlfriend left after finding out he had tried to use her children in a sympathy letter to my mother's church. My mother lost her position leading the grief support ministry. That part mattered to her more than court. She had built her identity around being the woman people trusted in pain. After Daniel's recording came out, the church board quietly asked her to step back. She told everyone she chose rest. Nobody believed her. Not everyone apologized to me. That is important. Some people are more comfortable believing a lie than admitting they helped carry it. But a few did. My cousin Julia came by with soup and said, "I should have asked why Grace was scared instead of why your mother was crying." That was a good apology. Specific. No demand attached. My Aunt Marlene wrote a long message about how both sides were hurting. I deleted it. That was a bad apology. Fog with punctuation. Grace started therapy twice a week. For a while, she would not enter the pantry alone. She hated the word judge. She asked whether people could lie on paper and make it true. I told her, people can lie on paper, but other paper can answer. She liked that. One night, she drew our house with a tall fence, a bright yellow door, and 2 stick figures inside. Me and her. In the corner, she drew a tiny man with wings holding a folder. "Is that Dad?" I asked. She nodded. He brought receipts. I laughed and cried at the same time. Children can turn grief into language sharper than adults dare. Months passed. The criminal case ended in pleas. Mason received jail time, probation, restitution, and a ban from working in any business involving client deposits without oversight. My mother received probation, mandatory counseling, community service, and a suspended jail sentence that would activate if she violated the protection order. Some people thought that was too light. Some thought it was too harsh. I stopped measuring justice by how loudly other people reacted. The civil case mattered more to me. Serena secured a judgment for property damage, therapy costs, legal fees related to protecting Grace's trust, and the attempted access to Daniel's policy records. A lien was placed against my mother's house and Mason's remaining equipment. When my mother heard the amount, she finally looked at me with something close to fear. Not fear of losing me. That had never frightened her enough. Fear of losing the things she believed proved she was respectable. After the hearing, she approached me in the courthouse hallway despite her attorney telling her not to. "Olivia," she said, voice shaking, "I am still your mother." I looked at her. For years, that sentence had worked like a key. This time, it did not fit the lock. "No," I said. "You are the woman my daughter had nightmares about." She flinched. Maybe that hurt. I hoped it did. Not because I wanted revenge. Because some truths should hurt the people who made them true, she whispered. "You'll regret cutting off blood." I looked through the courthouse glass doors where Grace waited with Julia, holding her stuffed rabbit and eating crackers from a paper cup. I regret teaching my daughter that blood was allowed to scare her. Then I walked away. Healing did not happen all at once. It came in tiny, ordinary repairs. Replacing the laundry window, buying a new pantry light because Grace said the old one flickered scary, moving the safe deposit key from my purse to a necklace I wore under my shirt. Letting Grace choose a new front door color. She chose yellow. "Like a warning?" I asked. "No," she said. "Like morning." So our door became yellow. The house changed after that, not because the walls were different, but because we were. I stopped answering blocked numbers. I stopped reading messages that began with, "Your mother is heartbroken." I stopped believing peace required access. The cedar box came home eventually, but not to the closet. I placed it on a shelf in my office. Inside were Daniel's letter, the flash drive, the court order, and Grace's drawing of him with wings and receipts, proof object, mirror object, burial object, all at once. A year later, Grace stood on the porch in a blue dress before her school concert. She was nervous. Her hair would not stay clipped. Her rabbit was too old to bring, she said, but she tucked it into her backpack anyway. Before we left, she touched the yellow door. "Do you think Grandma misses us?" I took a breath. "Maybe." "Do we have to miss her back?" "No." She thought about that. Then she said, "Good." At the concert, she sang louder than every child around her. I sat in the third row with Julia on one side and Daniel's old friend Marcus on the other. People who came because they wanted to, not because they owned a title. That night, as I tucked Grace into bed, she asked, "Are we still a real family if it's just us?" I smiled. "Grace, we became a real family the day we stopped letting unsafe people define the word." She nodded like that made perfect sense. Maybe to a child it does. Adults are the ones who complicate it. Have you ever had someone use family as a reason to take what peace should have protected? If you have, then you know the hardest part is not the confrontation. It is the quiet afterward, when no one is yelling, no one is demanding, and your body still feels like it should be preparing a defense. Stay in that quiet. Let it teach you the difference between loneliness and safety. Let it show you who knocks instead of entering. Let it show you who asks instead of taking. Let it show you that your child does not need a crowded family tree if half the branches are poison. My name is Olivia Hart. I am a widow. I am a mother. I am a woman who used to believe that being loved meant being available for use. Not anymore. My mother and brother came into my house looking for a cedar box, a trust packet, and a frightened child they could use as leverage. They found a panic button. They found a recording. They found Daniel's voice waiting on a flash drive. They found a judge who could read between the lines. And most of all, they found a woman who had finally learned that a locked door is not disrespect. Sometimes it is love.